Whatever your reasons may be for considering a relocation to Austin, Texas, naturally that process is not going to be without its stressors, without its risks, without chances and all of that scary stuff. And so in this video, we are going to be talking about the pros and cons of moving to Austin, Texas, and hopefully by the end of the video, helping you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not it is the right choice for you. Stay tuned. Hey again, everybody. This is Frank with the Living in Austin group at eXp Realty. Every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. We also love the reach out to get now all the time from people just like you in need of our help when relocating to the greater Austin area. So keep them coming. Don't hesitate. Whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team. Whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, any day of the week, any time of day. So yes, in this video, we are talking about the pros and cons of moving to Austin, Texas. And a bit of a disclaimer, in this video, we aren't necessarily talking about what it's like living here, the pros and cons of being in Austin, as we've talked about pretty distantly in the past now. It might be time for a new one of those, but this one primarily talking about the process of relocating, what to expect, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that way you're as prepared as possible, and that we hopefully do a good enough job of painting that picture for you, whether it's at risk of dissuading you or convincing you, or either way, just being informed. And so the first reason I wrote down, we're going to start with a pro and then go back and forth with just a few pros and cons. I wrote down Austin's demand and appreciation. And so it is a pro because despite the craziness of the country right now, despite the fluctuating market we see, despite the interest rates, which we'll get to in this video, something that is strong in favor of Austin, Texas, perhaps a bit more than its neighboring cities in the state of Texas, or perhaps in a lot of other places in the country, is that Austin, Texas has a lot going for it. And so Austin, Texas, with Google being here, with Facebook being here, with Tesla being here, with Apple being here, with Amazon being here, with IBM being here, with Dell being here, with so many more, I don't even want to repeat myself, I might do that by accident, but with so many companies flocking here, with Silicon Valley from the Bay Area essentially really growing what has been called the Silicon Hills here in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas, perhaps more than San Antonio, Houston, or Dallas, its neighboring major cities in Texas, is always going to have demand. And so that's the thing with the market that could be one way or the other way, with unpredictability in the country right now. A pro about moving to Austin, Texas specifically is that, let's say you are looking at equity or you are an investor looking for appreciation. Yes, obviously everything is getting more and more expensive, whether we're talking about houses, milk, or some gas for your car. But the thing about Austin, Texas is even if things were to really change in the market, if we were to see something like 2008, which things would, it'd have to be pretty shady for it to happen that way again. But if things really were to change, Austin, Texas, its market, for better and worse, is going to stand strong. You're still going to see equity and appreciation in a house that you purchase, or if you're an investor in a duplex or something of that nature, where despite the craziness, despite the unpredictability and fragility of the market, at least what is worth a pro is that you know that your money is still going to grow and grow at an accelerated pace, especially when compared to its neighboring cities in Texas. And so with a demand of people moving here, with Austin being one of the top places for relocation in the country, constantly, consistently ranking among the top, you can at least rest assured that you're going to see a return on your investment, that you are going to see steady appreciation and equity due to simply the demand. Now, moving on from our first pro, we will naturally segue to our first con, and that would be the changing culture of Austin, Texas. And that is simply a byproduct of the pro I just mentioned. Not everything is without consequence, right? And so, look, this is something I just cannot stress enough. Austin, Texas is dramatically different than it was 5 years ago, even more so 10, 15, of course, 20 years ago. Austin, Texas is evolving, some might argue the opposite, right? But it is changing in a way that is pissing off a lot of locals and is essentially making way for Austin being this non-Texan hub of the state of Texas. And so with the demand that I've already discussed, with the companies flocking here, flourishing here, growing here, we are seeing a changing culture that is becoming less and less Texan and more Austin, whatever that definition is to you. And so whether it is the subject of rapidly increasing crime in the city of Austin, that is something I can't stress enough. Whether it's the population that is growing so substantially in a city to begin with that is not really designed to handle that many people, as opposed to Dallas or Houston or even San Antonio, which are larger, they have better infrastructure, they're more equipped to handle such an influx of people. That looks like horrible construction in Austin. That looks like higher prices in Austin. That looks like endless traffic in Austin, which is perpetuated by the construction that is trying to fix the traffic. And so with the tech companies that are coming here, then again, you are seeing a lot of implants. So in case you haven't heard, implant is essentially someone who is not from here, who lives here. And so now if you meet 10 people, for example, and you ask all 10, are you from here? Probably 4 or 5, perhaps more, maybe a little less, will say, nope, I'm either from California, Washington, Oregon, Canada, New York. So that is something that in a lot of ways is great about Austin in terms of its diversity and its increasing complex population. However, it is certainly at the sacrifice, if you will, of the Texan culture that was once very authentic and is now becoming more commercial. It is now becoming more pretentious, might be a good word for it. And so, and of course, according to all of that, the prices for different things have been affected by that influx of population. So that's another thing. It's a con that is a byproduct of a pro. I just can't stress it enough. The changing culture here, it might be right for you or it might not. Moving on to our next pro of moving to Austin, Texas. This is something I wrote down as lower home prices. And this is interesting because just a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about how things are getting more and more expensive. And that is absolutely the case, not just in Austin, not just in Texas, but in the entire country. So don't get me wrong. However, recently, because of the changes of the market, which we will still get to a little bit later in this video, we are seeing that home prices are lower than they were just weeks, if not months ago. Homes were going for so far above asking price. If a house was listed at $450, the first offer would be $475, but the offer that wins would be $550. Some crazy stories like that we absolutely dealt with as buyers agents. And so it's interesting to see now, thankfully, even though the market is unpredictable, even though we are in whatever situation you want to call it, some argue we're in a recession, others say, no, we're not. I'm not here to clarify that and get controversial on this channel. I'm here to relay the data. And what we've seen is that if a house is listed, say at $450,000, most likely it's going to sell for $450,000, if not less than that. I mean, recent clients of ours have been going below asking price, which is something we have not seen in such a long time. So that is a pro. That is good news. Home prices now, I mean, you really can't have the audacity to price a house with any arrogance anymore, because truth of the matter is it will sit on the market and then boom, negotiations are absolutely on the table for the buying side if you're not able to sell your house and you asked too much for it. So yes, things are getting more expensive. Yes, things are a little bit unpredictable, but at least thankfully in the recent closings we've had in the past few weeks, we are delighted to inform you that the home prices are not what they used to be, and that, you know, all of this unpredictability, if anything, is being advantageous for buyers right now. You might not feel like it's time for you, but if you've been feeling the itch, maybe just take that into account, that it's not really what it once was. And so, yeah, if you are a buyer in this market, that's something to consider. All right, up next, we have perhaps the biggest con of all. This is something that we are all tripping up over, and rightfully so, and that would be the subject of interest rates. And it's a good time for cows to be holy right now, because holy cow, those interest rates. And so it's a bit of a natural segue from the pro that came right before this, of the lower home prices. And that's the thing. Why are we seeing lower home prices? Because interest rates have shot up. And what that has done to the market is absolutely shook it up and basically created a bit of a halt. And so, yes, interest rates are high and it's scary. I can't blame anybody for getting a little bit shaky in their boots, because you are talking about a few extra $100 a month, and then that equates to a few extra $1,000 a year, and all of a sudden you have to kind of reevaluate your finances. And a silver lining to that, however, is that in the past, if you were going under contract for a house and you were going, say, $75,000 over the asking price, you're basically in this current state with the interest rates saving money at the end of the day, because you're not going so above the asking price and you're getting a much more fair price, or even a price below asking. However, I don't mean to dismiss or disregard the reality of high interest rates. And so while I don't have a crystal ball, I'm not going to claim to know the future and what's going to happen, but it's a safe bet that they will continue to fluctuate. And so if you have been wanting to move to Austin, Texas, and you've just kind of been waiting to see what happens with interest rates, I would guess that they're still going to grow. And so while that might for some of you mean, okay, bets are off, I'm just not going to move at all, for others it might mean, you know what, the time is actually yesterday. And that's the thing, especially if you go under contract perhaps with a new build construction home. Good news could be that within the time that it takes to build a house and it's finished, the interest rates might be lower than they were when you went under contract for the asking price. In other cases, they might be higher. So that's something to consider. I understand if it's stopping you in your tracks, but at the end of the day, a lot of our clients are still doing it. A lot of our clients are simply adopting the mindset of simply just refinancing the house whenever interest rates get to where they want them to be. So there are options. If you are wanting to buy a house and you're scared of the interest rates, I'm not denying that that's a solid reason to be, but it is still very doable, very possible, and that's something that we enjoy helping our clients with, especially in negotiations. A lot of times we can get the selling side to kind of buy down the interest rates in some cases. And so that's something we like to do. But again, interest rates, absolutely a con if you are considering relocating to Austin, Texas. Now, real quickly, before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider liking the video as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. Now, keeping it moving, we have our final pro of the video, which is a direct byproduct of those damn interest rates. Perhaps you could consider it a silver lining, and that would be it is so much easier now to buy a house. I already talked a little bit about the lower home prices, which is one of the aspects of why it's easier to buy a house. But because of those interest rates, which we all absolutely loathe right about now, the silver lining is buying a house has not been this easy in a number of years. For a long time, we were seeing such an extreme seller's market. We were seeing people waiving an appraisal, waiving inspections. They were going so far above asking price. They had minimal time to do it. I mean, for example, you put a house up on Friday. By Saturday or Sunday, you've got 10 to 50 offers, and so many of them are cash offers that are just waiving this and that. And if you were really wanting your dream house, you really had almost no time to really check it out and make sure it was your dream house. A lot of people were buying blind, is what we would call it. And that was the way to get your offer accepted. You essentially had to beg. We even had clients writing letters to the sellers. I mean, we did everything to get those offers accepted, and that's something that we pat ourselves on the back for. But I am so relieved, in spite of the interest rates, to report that that is no longer the case. Now, houses are sitting on the market much longer, which is especially good if you are relocating from out of state and you just can't make it here in time to check out the house in person that's going to be sold tomorrow, you know what I mean? Or even going so far above asking price. As mentioned, nowadays, if a home is not priced for what it is worth, if they are selling the house for more than its market value, it will sit and sit and sit and sit on the market, which opens the doors for negotiations on the buying side. Now, all of a sudden, we are seeing seller incentives, sellers offering certain credits, sellers offering certain deals or packages or ways to get their places sold, because oftentimes they already have something contingent on another house, so they're desperate to sell. So as mentioned, it is becoming far more advantageous for buyers. And a quick example that we've seen recently is about 4 or 5 months ago, a certain builder company that we like working with, that a lot of our clients have enjoyed their new build construction homes, their models. That company about 4 or 5 months ago had 7 available lots and almost 1,000 offers on those 7 available lots. Fast forward to now, they not only have an abundance of more lots, far more than just 7, now they are offering them for $50,000 less than they were just those few months ago, and they are continuously dropping the prices. these builders went from having a bit of arrogance and confidence, and heck, we can name our price, they'll buy it anyway, to now being desperate enough to lower their prices and being overwhelmed with their inventory that they're stuck with all of a sudden. And so, yes, I acknowledge interest rates. Yes, I acknowledge the instability of where we are as a country right now. But at the end of the day, if you're looking to buy a house, it is so much easier now than it was before. Houses are getting haircuts left and right, and negotiations have never been easier, at least in recent memory. And so if you are considering moving to Austin, Texas, this is perhaps the strongest pro of them all. Not to dismiss any of the cons that work against it, because on this channel, we got to keep it blunt and brutally honest with you guys so that you're as informed as possible. But for what it's worth, I come to you with good news given the context that if you are in the market to buy, yes, it might be scary, but it hasn't been easier, at least in such a long time. Moving on, we have our final con, and that would be the subject of property taxes. And I will keep this brief because this is something we've talked about in abundance on this channel over the past, what has it been, 1 year and 9 months now. So I mention it again simply because if you are a brand new viewer, if you're new to the channel, if I can reach one person who is not considering this or taking it into account, I have done my job. The rest of you, I'll keep it brief, right? So subject of property taxes, do not let this blindside you, okay? A lot of people that we've helped who are relocating from places, they have property tax rates that they're used to of 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%. Well, not just in Austin, Texas, but the state of Texas, it is far more common to see property tax rates of at least 2%, very commonly 2.5%, oftentimes 2.75%, and in some very nice newer development areas, we have property tax rates of 3% or higher. And so in some cases that can absolutely look like a second mortgage. A lot of people would argue it balances out because of the no state income tax that Texas has. So take the good with the bad. But again, if you are in the process of preparing to relocate, you're doing all your finances, you're running your numbers, you're getting your ducks in a row, do not forget to account for those property taxes. It can really be something that surprises you if you're not prepared. And, doing our job on this channel, we want you to be as prepared as possible. That is simply a reality of living in not just Austin, but the state of Texas. So don't mean to dissuade you, but the more you know. So there you have it. As mentioned, these are not the pros and cons of living in Austin, Texas, something we've talked at length about in the past. These are the pros and cons of relocating and moving to Austin, Texas. Hopefully just preparing you as much as possible, helping you know what to expect, maybe things you didn't think about going into it, so that at the end of the day, you can know if it's right or wrong for you. And if it's right for you, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible. But again, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So don't hesitate, whether you're 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call, any day of the week, any time of day. It is what we love to do. And again, every week we put out new content about living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So consider subscribing if you haven't already. Ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Consider liking the video if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.